Good morning, everyone. Today is July 16th. Thought I would do a journal entry. Just got done with my TED Talk about an hour ago, and my knee is feeling great. There's just a tiny little bit of issue in there. It's fantastic. I'm kind of blown away. Anyway, this is a handwritten journal. And the date on this is December 2nd, 23. And I'm referring to Kevin, which is our neighbor, the son of our neighbor, my mom's friend with the wife, my dad's friend with the pedophile husband, and he abuses his son Kevin, and we were abused together on some occasions. So there was more to the encounter with Kevin. We were in my room on the bed, sitting on the side. I thought it was puppy love. It was for me. Kevin wanted to go all the way after the kiss. We took off our pants. I said, let's just use hands. I don't want to get caught. Our parents were home. He wanted just sex, really, although I think he did feel something. I know I did. I loved him. Missed him a lot when he was gone. He said we may as well do it for us, not for them. Because rationale was, if we're going to have sex, let's, have it be for us, for fun, for, whatever. I think I was 10 and he was 12. He was horny, he said. I now think he came to me just for sex. I thought otherwise. We had several abuse encounters together or in the same room. I recall an encounter in the basement of Kevin's house. Bob and Dad, Bob is the neighbor father, Kevin's father. So Bob, Dad, and Kevin and I, plus a girl was there. She was older, perhaps 14-ish. I was 9 or 10. She was to show Kevin and I how to be lovers to our dads. There was some sort of network of witches, abusers, pedos, and between Dad's parents in Indiana, Whitey, Irene, and Jolie in 3 Lakes, and this girl here in Milwaukee, our area anyway. So yeah, there was this, my dad's parents lived in Indiana, and his father was a Mason, and my dad's mother was a witch, 4th generation witch, and there was like this network, between witches, abusers, pedophiles, between the Whitey and Irene abuse that happened at 3 Lakes, Wisconsin. Anyway, I think she was Jolie, or perhaps Jody. Or Jolly was the name used for all of them so as to keep them anonymous. She taught us about, I put in quotes, being lovers to our dads. It wasn't just about getting them off. It was about us deriving pleasure, and this gave them pleasure, which I don't believe that. I was listening to a John Euler show about sex offenders, and they get off on the harm that they cause, not from pleasure that they cause. Even though the control/pain aspect was always present, she showed us how to, gosh darn it, feel ourselves up, to, I guess, put on a show for them. A lap dance sort of deal, or pole dancing without the pole. A sexual seduction, now that I think about it. I didn't like it. I was self-conscious. Plus it took us out of being the victim, so to speak, and cast us as participants. I didn't like it. She had me and Kevin trade dads. My dad didn't like the, quote, homo thing. I didn't want to do Bob. Dad promised no others after Whitey. Bob was not turned on by a girl either. This jolly girl said it was good for all of us, had to keep things mixed up. She undressed and had Kevin and I touch her all over, and she touched us too. a show for the men. I have to say right now, as I'm reading this, I forgot all about it. So this is interesting. Then we went and sucked our dads off. She had us then trade off. She also touched us all over while we were with the dads. She touched all over me, Kevin too. Dad insisted on separate chairs for him and Bob, spaced out. It was all confusing, but the confusion led to sexual stimulation and arousal in a different way. I suppose that was the idea. The dads came quick. After the dads came 2 times, one from each of us, she dressed and bounced along her way out of there. I think the dads paid her. They talked for a minute about the connection/contact for another jolly. She gave Dad a card and said, "It's all on here." Then she left. She had to get to another house soon. Kevin and I dressed and went upstairs. Dad and I went home. Dad napped. I played Barbies. Mom was in the kitchen. Angie and Mary were outside. Angie and Mary are my sisters. So the next entry, December 3rd of 23. Dad's strange laugh is going through my mind. It's a very abrupt kind of thing, like an exhale type of thing. It isn't joyful. It's more smug and arrogant type of vibe. Oh, I put on here, Mom died 1 year ago tomorrow. So yeah, that was, my mom died December 4th in 22. I feel bad saying it, but I'm glad she passed because it freed up my memories. I feel safe to remember. It's awkward with Angie. I can't say 1,000 things. Actually, perhaps it was the baptism that freed up the memories, not Mom's death, although both her and Dad are gone now. It blows my mind how in denial all 4 of them are/were. Only one remembers, meaning me. I'm sure that my dad remembers. He just denies it. But my mom and both my sisters, oh no, I don't remember anything. I don't, I believe you. I'm sorry for what you went through, but I just rack my brains. I can't think anything. So the next entry here is December 10th of 23. Again, while Chris and I were having sex, I remembered more. When in the basement at Bob and Marianne's house, that girl, Jolly number 2, I called her, was there to train Kevin and I with Dad and Bob. Kevin was trained in cunnilingus on me, and I was trained in blowjobs on Dad. So Dad is on his back. I was giving him a blowjob on my knees. Kevin was on his back doing cunnilingus on me, and Bob was behind Kevin doing Kevin, a real orgy. Jolly would watch, walk around, and give tips and guidance. Dad and Bob just took what they could, all they could. Kevin and I were critiqued and corrected. Example, when I would, this is a little graphic, sorry, I don't allow, I mark my videos not for children. When I would stroke Dad in my arm tired, she told me to move my elbow or arm just a bit, and therefore different muscles would be in use, resting the others. I realized that a lot of my sexual experience from then I used later in life, but was unaware of it or in denial of how I knew them. I was always told I was, quote, good in bed, but I didn't know why I was, not until now. This training also taught my body to have multiple orgasms due to the man taking forever to come. My body was conditioned into it, Kevin as well. I recall going to Kevin's to play. I would play with Kevin's trucks and cars, little, the little Tonka things. I think he had a lot of Hot Wheels too, and so I played with those. I liked them. Marianne thought it was odd. It was because it was a delay until she and Nan left. Then Kevin and I, with the dads, would go downstairs for training. I would get an upset stomach on the way down. Also, Dad found a way to sneak Jolly number 2 into our basement. after Mom was in bed. Dad would get me out of bed, and when we got downstairs, she would already be there. She trained me, and Dad would sneak her up the stairs and out the door. I put on this side here. This was when I had my own room. Angie thought she should have it. Dad said it was for me because I wet the bed. If we didn't have that house set up with the basement door outside of our house, he couldn't have done it. Our house was, I don't know what you call it, if it's a triplex is a thing, but it was one 3-bedroom house on the main floor, and above were 2 apartments, 2 1-bedroom apartments. And then there was a full basement below, but each apartment got a third of, or I think a quarter of the basement. So it worked because of this. I put a sketch of how the stairs were. This was how you came in the door. Let's see if I can do it this way. Well, anyway, you can see. And then you'd go straight, there's a door straight to the basement. And then this would take you stairs to go up to the apartments. And then down here, oh my goodness, is where the entrance to our house was, which was, over here and encompassed the whole space down below. So you could go from the outside door straight into the basement. One time Mom came downstairs late at night looking for me. Jolly, too, had to quickly hide. Mom and Dad had a tiff over why I was there. She took me up to bed. Dad did his laugh. I heard Jolly, too, leave, the door closed shortly after. Mom was mad at Dad. I recall Jolly putting her finger in my throat and pressing my tongue down. She told me to relax and then I could breathe. After gagging many times, and she would stroke my throat, I relaxed, and then my throat would open and I could breathe. That was to deep throat a peacock, she said. She and I would both be naked. Dad would have a top on in case someone came down there. He also had drapes or a blanket hung across the opening to his workspace area, what we would now call a man cave. The upstairs renters could possibly go down there for their storage or for laundry at any time. When they did, Dad would warn them not to enter, and I would have to be quiet. I was always freaked out. Dad would have to pull up his pants from his ankles real quick. I had to hide a few times. I would go into our storage locker area that had a space cleared out for me. I was freaked out but also relieved for the break. Sometimes I had a top on too, and Jolly too, just in case. It depended on the time. One time Jolly too and I both had to hide together. She thought it was great fun. I did not. She was touching and poking at me so as to make noise. I couldn't. I wouldn't get in trouble. I would get in trouble. She just got to leave. I don't know who she was or where she came from. One of Grandma's friends in a witchcraft network. And that's my father's mother. I recall not liking the girl-on-girl parts. Dad always said he didn't care for the homo stuff like Bob did. I think Dad's dislike/distaste for that translated to me, thank goodness, because both Irene and the Jollies, number 1 and number 2, said it didn't matter where the pleasure came from. It was just come and orgasm was the goal. In the Army, I was kissed by a girl and I pushed her off of me. I'll back up for a second. When I was in the military in basic training, actually it was AIT, the next step after that, where you learn your job, which is advanced individual training. We were in bunk beds. And you don't really get a weekend leave or anything until, 4-6 weeks into the, 8-week training, and then it's just a weekend. But we happened to get a weekend pass, and we went to a party, and we were somewhere. We went outside to the pool area, and there was, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 people out there. Most everybody was inside. We were just sitting there chatting, and I think drinking, and all of a sudden she made a pass at me, and I was like, no. I mean, I will say in that split second, I allowed it, thinking, I don't know what I was thinking. I think my part or training kicked in, but after a second or two, I was like, ew, no. So anyway, in the Army, I was kissed by a girl and I pushed her off me. Yeah, it was like, no, that's enough. I don't go that way. Also, when Star lived with me, she made a pass at me with a kiss and I pushed her off me. I was repelled by it. I kicked her out soon after. Now, later on down the road, you'll learn about Star. It was when I was in the New Age and I went to work at a crystal shop, and the owner of that shop named herself. She said she was down in Mexico with some master, and she got named Estrella Fuentes, which means flaming star. And so she said, call me Star. That was her name. So I'm glad for Dad's prejudice with homos, although I'm not prejudiced towards homosexuals. I actually had a homosexual roommate in Dallas for 3 years. We were great friends. Otherwise, I may have irrevocably gone down that path. His homophobia saved me from it. And then here's a kind of a different topic. I still am confused as to why Jesus came through me at 6 years old and scared off Grandma and the witches. What was it for? Why me? I understand the dream as an adult when he came to me, but not the 6-year-old one. So yeah, I was just thinking here on paper that I get the dream, the one that I read just prior to this, but I couldn't understand why Jesus would do that when I was 6, which I think I understand now. It was to let me know that he was there and protecting me and to scare the hell out of those witches. I recall Mom teaching me about Jesus. I think I asked her about it. She told me he died to save all of us from our sins. I said, what about if we got afraid or in trouble? Did he help? She said he was just like God, that he is God. So yes, when I was scared or in trouble, to call his name and he would help. On the day of that ritual, when I was 6, I was scared. I had just seen Grandma kill a baby. I started asking Jesus to come help me. I was scared. Please help me, over and over in my mind. Jesus, help me, over and over. I was lifted up. I levitated, then Jesus came in me. I went up to God. I wrote off on the side here. So that was, after I wrote that, went back and reread it, I had, more memories come. But after that, with Dad in the basement, Dad noticed I was praying and calling for Jesus. He was furious and forbade me to, quote, never say or even think of that goddamn Jesus Christ, close quote. Plus, Dad said that a lot, Jesus effing Christ, or God damn it. So I associated badness and anger with Jesus. I got confused about it. Plus, too, I think I blacked out the possession of Jesus in my body during that ritual. So I lost my knowledge of him personally saving me in that ritual as I disassociated. And I want to interject here. I'll explain it further in detail down the line, but after I would write an entry, it might be a day or two later or whatever, but I would reread it, and as I'm rereading it, I'd go, oh yeah, I remember that little detail, and so I would interject it on the side of the thing. But now, since I'm doing it in a Word document, I add it in there. But that's my point, is go back and reread your journals. I know you're reliving that moment and it can be upsetting, but you'll get more details. You will. I know I certainly do. So here's the next entry, December 12th of 23. And I'm just realizing right now that would have been my mom's 81st birthday, but she died the year before. There was a time when Angie, Mary, and I, and a few of Angie and Mary's friends were in the basement. We did a kind of game where someone laid on the floor and all of us circled around. Each of us put 2 fingers from each hand under the person. I think some of you may recall this. Then we all chanted something. It rhymed and had to do with lifting that person effortlessly with just our 2, of the 4 fingers each collectively. It didn't work. That person got up. Then Angie said, let's have Diana do it. Diana can do it. So I laid down. I think I chanted the chant with them. I do recall lifting up just a few inches. Then Mom came down and around the corner to see what we were doing. I dropped down quickly, but it was perhaps 3 or 4 inches. I recall the girls being impressed/nervous. I played it off. Angie was all smiles with her friends. We never did it again. At least I didn't. I recall feeling excited by it, but only afterward when the interest came from the girls. While it occurred, I recall being very internalized and focused. I don't think Jesus liked that. Because as I'm reading this as an adult, I know if levitation comes from demonic, not a demon possessing or entering you, but from demonic forces allowing you to lift up. I watched a video of an ex-Satanist magician, and he said they called them the mage, and he was the head mage for his area, and I think ultimately in the U.S. he was like the head guy, and he said that he could levitate, but the only way that happened was if a demon lifted him up. And he said, he'd go 100 feet in the air and he was okay, but one time he went up like 300 feet and he freaked out and asked him to set him back down. So that's really what was going on here with that game. I think you all know is, you can't lift a body with just 2 fingers. Even if there's 8 people around that person, it's not going to happen. So if it does occur, there's a demonic force present. I realize now it was practicing witchcraft. Mary always seemed a mystery to me. Not many memories like with Angie, Mom, or Dad. She seemed envious or covetous somehow, but silent about it. No real outward show of emotion like the others. Almost as though she was always plotting and planning, perhaps. And the next entry, December 14th, 23. I was remembering Angie having us practice that Hail Ra, Hail Satan chant and dance. That was the one that my grandma taught us, and Angie thought that, she was in charge. She needed to keep us trained throughout the year until we went back there. After a while, I stopped and told her it was too complicated and that we should do it like this. So I got in the center and showed her what I thought would work. It was just the left hand brought up from between the groin chest, the solar plexus, then a step, and then full turn to the left, raising the hand over the head. It created a spinning funnel or spiral from the body up to the ethers. Then you spoke what you wished. A spell, I suppose. Counterclockwise spiraling through the world/ether/universe. Then you do it to the right with the right hand. This went clockwise. I said, and this way undoes it. Simple. She didn't see it or feel it or get it, so we continued on with her/grandma's way. I did it my way until the end and then undid it. It was self-evident to me. As my grandma had taken me to the side, I remember this later after the century when we were at her house, and I guess I had an aptitude for witchcraft or the movement of energy and things like that. So she took me to the side and would teach me things. Later, I showed Jolly 2 with Dad, and she seemed impressed. She took a breath. Then I undid it. She said, yes, I see it. It works. So I showed her how. She practiced. She could see it. I realized that she may have taught others. This would be a great mistake I made. It works. It's powerful, she said. I just shrugged my shoulders. I'm like 6 and I'm screwing around with witchcraft. I don't recall using it but once, except I didn't have to spin with the hand. I did it in my mind. Just began the spiral/whirlwind off of the ether. I used it for me and Chris, except I only remember when I undid it. Only then did I recall doing it at all. I was in the tub and I knew I had to undo it, so I did, and it was in my head. I remember seeing and feeling the tension of it releasing and falling apart gently. I was glad, but also perplexed as to when I began it or why. Now, this is with my husband 30 years later, so this part came up and created a spell. But once it was undone, I was so much calmer about Chris loving me and me him. I think it was a love spell/wish. I think we were married shortly after that. So, and you know, we were together 6 years before we got married. I also recall the energy move in the car. Oh, right. When I would run a yellow close to a red light, I would expand my energy out so as to block all other things to protect myself. But it always felt as though I was pulling it in. Only when I really thought and felt about it did I realize it was an outward pushing of energy, not inward pulling. Or perhaps I pulled into my solar plexus and pushed out my temple/head. I'm just realizing now, but this is not a spell. So yeah, it's like that, you know, you're running a yellow, almost a red light, right? And you're kind of nervous and scared. And I remember I would feel this energy go out of me. It was almost like, you know, the witch inside of me that was taught witchcraft would push the energy out so as not to get hit or anything, which is kind of ridiculous. But, you know, I'm also sitting here thinking that when you're scared, you know, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but energy moves in your body. So maybe it was a natural thing, witchcraft, I don't know. But I think because my mind was thinking about witchcraft and different things I had done in my life, that, you know, maybe I was recreating it as an adult and unaware of it. So, let me see, do I want to continue on? Yeah, this is pretty long, so I think I'll save this for next time. So, yeah, I just wanted to go over that real quick and tried not to make these hour long, 45-minute, hour long, try and shoot for like a half an hour. Because I'm 9 months behind, not behind in work, but you're 9 months behind me, and I want to get into the nitty-gritty stuff and the revelations I've had and the tools that my counselor gave to me that I then expanded upon and was able to, I think, create some tools that are pretty effective. They were effective for me, just seeing things, you know, on a computer screen or on paper and getting it out of my head and being able to put it in timelines and organize it. And then, you know, Gray helped me figure out my mind files and all that. So I don't want to hurry or rush, but I feel like time is pressing. So anyhow, I'm going to let y'all go for today, and I hope you're getting something out of this. Like I said, this is kind of just the preliminaries of my journals. It isn't really until I start working with my counselor that things start really moving along. And I think that's what's really going to be helpful to people. So I thought it important to go through these journals so that you could get a background of some of my, you know, SRA. Anyhow, thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.
Round and round, what comes